So remember that our final exam is on the 10th of December, right, in class. And 10th of December, and it's a Wednesday, right? Last time we talked about the comparative method, if you remember, right? That's a method in historical sociology. Sorry. In the morning I taught sociolinguistics. Comparative method is a method in historical linguistics, right? And we compare. The comparative method compares cognates, right? We compare cognates from different languages in order to establish relationships between those languages, right? The more similar the cognates are, the more relationship they had or they used to have in the old days, okay? And also we use the comparative method in order to reconstruct, right? To build, to reconstruct the proto-forms of the proto-language, right? And the proto here, it means that it's unattested, right? Meaning we don't have the evidence, we have to reconstruct it ourselves. And we have two rules, the majority rule and the common sense, the linguistic common sense rule, to use under the comparative method to establish or to reconstruct the proto-forms, okay? And then we got started on the history of English, right? We said that there are maybe 4 periods of English, right? The first period is Old English, and it started off with the arrival of the Germanic peoples. Remember, there are 3 groups of peoples, meaning the Jutes, the Angles, and the Saxons, remember? And then they came to the British Isle, and that's the start of English. And then in the 8th century, you have the Vikings or the Norsemen from Sweden, that area, Norway, Denmark, right? So they came and they took control of half of the island. So we have the Danelaw area, right? So we have Scandinavian languages mixed in with the Germanic languages. And then finally in 1066, we have the Battle of Hastings, right? The Battle of Hastings, where French people came onto the island to take control of the British Isle. And that is when French came into the language, okay? So now we got into what we call Middle English, right? Middle English started off with that historical date. And when you have a lot of French people coming in and they are the ruling class, French people as the ruling class, this means that everything was done in French, including when you go to church, when you write laws, when you conduct business with other people, like merchants conducted business with French people, the ruling class. So everything was done in French. So French was a language of power during the Middle English period for about 300 years also, okay? So in this case, you have an influx of French words coming into English, okay? And then by the end of the Middle English period, about the 14th century, you have the coming of the printing press. Do you know the printing press? The printing press is a machine that allows you to print books, right? Before that, before this, you know, people copy books by hand. So it's a costly thing, right? Because you have to do every page yourself, every letter yourself. To get a copy of the same book, it takes days or months even. And each book looks different because it's done like one by one. And it's costly, expensive to produce a book because you don't have paper. You have to take the skin of animal and you have to dry the skin of the animal under the sun and everything. So it takes a long time. And books are not prevalent. You don't have a lot of books and people could not read. So this means that not many people know how to write, okay? So, but at the end, towards the end of the Middle English period, in the 14th century also, people invented the printing press. And the printing press was brought to Britain, okay, for the first time in the history. And that's the start, the end and the start of the early modern English period as well. So the printing press created a huge influence on the English language, because when you print books, but when you publish books by machine, everything has to be the same, right? There's only one copy. Everything looks the same. Words have to be spelled in the same way, right? No matter how different ways people pronounce it. So in this case, you have the beginning of what we call standardization. Standardization is when you agree that let's spell the word this way, let's write a word this way, right? That's why some words just do not have the same pronunciation as the spelling, because the standardization fixes, the process of standardization fixes the spelling of the word, while the pronunciation of the word can change. And that started in the end of the Middle English period and in the beginning of the early modern period. So the early modern period is the period of, if you know, Shakespeare. And that's after the printing press was brought to England. So standardization occurred in that period, okay? And then in the early modern English period, that's when there's imperialism, right? England spread the influence throughout the globe. So England has colonies everywhere, right? Across the globe. So that's when English spreads into different regions, into the US and into other places, into Canada and so on. So this is in the early modern English period. And the last period is PDE, present day English, which is like from the 19th century till now. Okay? So now you know about the general history of English, and you know several changes that have come into the English language. What we want to do now is to look at Old English in detail. Okay? On your slide, there is a slide that is on Old English. Can you look at that slide? Things that we have for nouns are what? Plural, right? Like book and books. That's it, right? There's one ending like that. Or you have books apostrophe S, which means possessive. In fact, we have just two, right, for nouns. Inflectional endings like this, plural and possessive. But in Old English, you have more, right? You have more. And nouns and adjectives are inflected, meaning you have endings for case, number, and gender. We'll talk about case today in particular, and also number and gender. For gender, in Old English, they have three genders. Masculine, feminine, and neuter. And I need to say that for the gender is not natural gender. It's not like because this word means a man, so it's masculine. Or this word means a woman, so it's feminine. It's not like that. It's grammatical gender. There's no reason as to why the table should be male or female, or the moon should be male or female. It's just in the language. If you study Spanish or if you study French, it's like that nowadays. Okay? But nowadays in modern English, we don't have gender, right? Table, we just say it. We say it without any gender. But for people, there is natural gender. If it's a man, then you use he. If it's a woman, you use she. But maybe ship, for ship, you have gender. For the ship, you usually use the female gender, right? And country, you also use female gender too. But for other things, there's no gender in present day English. Now for number, we have singular and plural, and that's the same in Old English. So number has stayed the same, but gender is different. We no longer have we no longer have grammatical genders for stuff like for cell phone, for table, for shoes, for everything. We just use it or they, right? We don't have gender anymore except when it's a natural gender, like male or female, that represent a guy or a woman. And then case, case is like the ending that you have on nouns when it does different functions in a sentence. Case we have not for nouns, we have for pronouns nowadays. So for example, when the word I is the subject, it's I, right? But when it's an object, it's a different form, it's me, right? So this is what we call case. So depending on what it does in a sentence, it will have different forms, different endings. So this is the subject case, this is the object case, like that, okay? So that's what we mean by case. And for he is the subject case, and the object case is him, like that, right? But Old English has more than this. This is just pronouns, right? Old English has cases on nouns as well. In modern day, we don't have. We have only plural, we have possessive, but that's it. Whether a book is the subject or a book is the object. I gave a book to him or a book is on the shelf. It doesn't make any difference in terms of case. But Old English has cases for nouns as well, and we'll talk about different cases today. So I'll just use the handout here that I have to explain cases. Okay? Can you pass this out? Thank you. Can you pass this out? Thank you. Pass this out? Thank you. So now we'll focus on cases and nouns, okay? This is perhaps the most difficult thing in this chapter because it can be very confusing because modern English doesn't have it. So I'll explain like slowly here. Does anyone need a copy? Three? Any extras? One? You need one? 2, 3. So in modern English, right, the dog ate the cat and the cat ate the dog. They mean totally different things, right? Because in the dog ate the cat, the dog is in the subject case. The cat is in the object case. Whereas in the cat ate the cat is in the subject, the dog is in the object case. But they look the same, right? They look the same despite the different cases that they are in. Like the dog here is the subject case, the cat is the object. But the cat in the second one is in the subject, the dog is in the object case. But they look the same. They look exactly the same. So how do we tell who does the action and who is acted upon? Well, the answer is the word order is important, right? So in modern day English, we rely on word order. So what is in the front is usually the subject case. What's after the verb is usually the object case. That's what we do in modern English, right? Because we have no other clues to tell us what it does. Is it the subject or is it the object? We have no other clues on the word because the words look the same. So we have to rely on the word order, right? What is in the front is the subject. What's after the verb is the object, like that. For nouns. But for pronouns, you know, because you have different forms. I or he loves me, he is the subject because it's spelled as he, it's pronounced as he. Whereas if it's the object of he, it has to be him. So in this case, for pronouns, you have the different forms that tell you. Okay? Now let's look at the situation in Old English. In Old English, the word order doesn't matter. In Old English, word order doesn't matter. Word order doesn't matter. That's because, again, because all nouns are inflected for cases. All nouns have endings for cases. And by looking at the ending or by hearing the endings, you know what it does in a sentence. So it doesn't matter how a sentence is spelled out. If you want to have the dog ate the cat, in which the dog is the subject and the cat is the object, right? You can write it many different ways as long as you have the endings. So you can write it like this: dog plus the subject ending, ate the cat plus the object ending. This is the normal way. But you can have the cat in the front, but you have to have the object ending to show that it's the object. And then ate the dog, which means the same thing as the dog ate the cat, because the word order doesn't matter anymore, because you have the object ending after the cat that tells you this is the object. You can mix the order in any way you like. You have the verb before, ate, dog, cat, it doesn't matter. If you have, as long as you have the object ending case. Oh, as long as you have the subject and object cases. Cat, dog, ate, doesn't matter if it's the verb, the verb is at the end, as long as you have the cases ending. Okay? So those are the hypothetical sentences. Now let's look at the real sentence. In number one, let's focus on number one. Number one is the man slew the queen. The man killed the queen. Okay? So in Old English, it is seguma. You see, seguma slow ta queen, right? In this case, you have seguma, which is the subject, and then ta queen, which is the object. So the word, the queen here, ta queen, is marked with an ending that is the object case, the direct object case. The E here is the direct object case, like that. Okay? And what is also interesting is that you see the word se, seguma. Se means the. And se has to change the form according to the case. So if it's the subject case, it has to be se. If it's the object case, it has to be ta, like this. So the article has to agree with the case too, which is difficult for if you study Old English, right? Because if it's the subject, you use the word se to mean the. But if it's the object, you have to change it to ta to mean the same. Okay? And in the second one, if you compare the first one to the second one has the man, not the name. The man slew the queens, okay? In this case, you have a plural noun, an object plural, right? Not just the queen, but the queens plus an S. You see that the ending changes from E to A or to A here. Ta quena. You see that? So I here tells you that is the object plural object, rather than just the singular object. But you still have the ta here, okay? And then in the third one, what do you have? The queen slew the man. The queen here has become a subject. So you cannot just use the quene. You don't have the E ending, because E says that it's the object ending. But here's the subject ending, it has zero ending. Okay? And notice the word the changes to sail. Right? Why is it sail and not say like number one? Because queen is feminine, and the word the has to change to the feminine form, which is sail. So if it's masculine, you use say. If it's feminine subject, you use sail, just like that. So again, the article has to agree in number, in gender, and in the case, in terms of case, agree with the noun that it modifies. So that's why it's confusing and that's why it's difficult. But on the other hand, it's detailed enough to tell you, the reader, if you are familiar with the system, that this is the subject. So it doesn't matter where the word is. If Seo Quen appears in the back of the sentence, you know still that it's the subject. And it's feminine because of the word Seo tells you, or because there's no ending. Okay? And you can also look at the word Guman, Tone Guman. Here, the man is the object, so it must have the ending, en, which is the object ending. And the article now changes from se to tone, because it's the object, like that. Okay? See, number 4, se guma tache them quenum to sprechen. The man teaches the queens to speak. In this case, you have a different case. This is what we call indirect object. Indirect object, because after teach, you have both direct and indirect object, right? I teach something to someone, like that. So the queen here is the indirect object case, okay? And it's a plural indirect object, so you need the um ending. See? Just from quen to quenum, um is the indirect object plural ending. And then the word the has to change to them. Them is used for indirect object plural. Okay? Number 5, what is different is the case of the word tare quene. Tare quene, number 5, is the possessive case. The possessive case, which means just like apostrophe s in modern day English. Okay? So you have tare quene, which means of the queen. In this case, is the e ending. Okay? And tare is the word the, but in the possessive case. Finally, in 6, you have the possessive case too. The man lays on the lap of the queens, but it's a possessive case in which the noun is plural. So quene changes to quena, and tare changes to tara, for example. Okay? So again, this is confusing because each case and each number, singular or plural, needs a different ending altogether. But if you are familiar with the endings, then you can tell right away what cases it is in. Okay? And also, it doesn't matter the word order. Okay? So you don't have to memorize the endings, but you need to understand what case it is in, a noun is in. So there are, in Old English, 5 cases that we'll study in this class. We have nominative, this is in the table below here. We have nominative, accusative, genitive, dative, / instrumental. And these are the cases that you need to understand. But you don't have to memorize the endings, okay? Nominative case is the subject case, okay? You use the nominative endings for subjects, okay? And for subject complement, meaning whatever you have after the be verb. Like, I am a student. The word student is in the nominative case, okay? The second case is the accusative case. The accusative case is the case for direct object. And you guys know what a direct object is, right? Next one is genitive case. Genitive is the possessive case. It's just like the apostrophe s or the word of. Like the book of John or John's book, same thing. So it would look like this. The book of John, John's book. Here, John will have this as this apostrophe s as the possessive marker, or the book of John. Here you mark it with the word of. But in Old English, you will use an ending to suggest that it's a genitive case. Okay? John's book or the book of John is the same thing. So the marking will be on John, not on the word book. Okay? Let me give you another example. Let's see. I trash, okay, John's book. Now, this is important. I trash John's book. The book here must have a case ending. John must also have a case ending, right? Because remember, every noun will have a case ending in Old English. John is a noun, book is also a noun. So both of them must have a case ending. So what case should the book be in? Well, you have to consider the grammatical function of the word book. So what is the word book doing here in terms of grammatical function? Is it the subject? Is it the object? Is it the possessive? Or is it the indirect object? I trash John's book. Clearly, the book is the direct object, right? I did something to the book. So this is the direct object, do. So it should be in the accusative case. But in modern English, we just don't see that, right? We only see the plural if there is, okay? But John will be in what case? John will be in the possessive case, right? So you have two different cases here because they are two different nouns. It's possessive because it's the book of John, like that. Just like here, I trashed the book of John. Trash the book. I trashed the book would be the direct object, which is accusative. Of John would be the possessive. Like that. Okay? So this is where it can get tricky, but now you understand it, right? So you have to consider what a noun is doing in a sentence, and we consider the case based on that. We'll see more examples in a minute here. So genitive is the possessive and also partitive. Partitive means it's a part of the whole, like some of people, some of the man, like that. When you see an of, it's the dative case, okay? Oh, it's the genitive case, I'm sorry. Finally, you have the dative case or / the instrumental. They are the same thing. You can think of the dative and instrumental as indirect object or object of preposition, okay? Like I gave the book to him, the word to him, that should be in the dative case. Or the instrumental is something like I bought it with a credit card. Credit card here must be in the dative case or the instrumental case because it's the instrument by which you use to pay the money. This is because in Old English, there's no preposition. In Old English, no preposition. So how would you know that it's an instrument rather than it's the direct object? Of course, because you have to have some ending like credit card X, like that. So you know that it's an instrument rather than other things. So, can I say that again? The nominative is the subject case, and it's the what we call subject complement, whatever is after the be verb. As in, my name is Krista. The word Krista should be in the nominative case. Okay? Same as the subject. The accusative case is the case for direct objects, right? The genitive case is the case for possessive, someone owns something, and partitive, meaning something that is after the word of. Some of the man, like most of the men, like that. 5 of 10 people, like that. Okay, of 10 people, that's the genitive case. And dative or instrumental, there are cases for indirect objects and objects of prepositions, with the exception of okay, with the exception of, because of is genitive. Okay. Now, what we'll do is we'll look at different examples in modern English and have you figure out what cases they are in. In these tables, you don't have to memorize anything, but what I want to show is that these are different endings for different cases, different numbers, and different genders. Remember, nouns in Old English are inflected for cases, nominative, genitive, accusative, and so on, and also for numbers, singular or plural, and for gender, masculine, feminine, or neuter. So you have these different endings. If it's masculine, you have these endings: masculine, singular, masculine, plural; neuter, singular, neuter, plural; feminine, singular, feminine, plural. And in different cases, you add these different endings. There are some nouns that some cases with no ending, like zero ending, like nominative, singular, masculine, no ending, like that. Okay, and these are the real words. Okay, like angel, anglas, like that, with the s to show the nominative plural. And no doubt, the reason why we have s as the plural marker is because of this. Angle, anglas. The s here has survived until the present day. And for genitive, is not what we have today, right? Angla, right? So these are examples of real words, and also just the ending on your left-hand side. Okay, you don't have to memorize, but I just want to show you that there are different endings for different genders, different numbers, different cases. So we have two groups of nouns: strong nouns and weak nouns also, and you don't need to know which one are strong and which one are weak. If you want to know, then go on further in the history of English. So what we'll do now is we'll consider the cases that nouns can be in by using present-day English examples. So I underlined, there are 15 examples also on this handout, and I underlined some noun phrases, okay? Remember, all noun phrases must have a case in Old English. And in modern English too, but we don't have the case markers. Like in number 1, Alfred ruled England. I underline Alfred and I underline England. So in what cases these nouns are in? Alfred ruled England. So we have to consider what they do, what these noun phrases do. Alfred is the subject of the sentence, isn't it? So it's the nominative case. And Alfred is the name of a guy, so it will have no ending if you see it in Old English like that. Okay? And then rule England. England is the direct object, so it's accusative, right? ACC. Accusative singular, right? And I'll do number 2. The Vikings attacked Alfred's kingdom. Now this is more tricky than the first one. The Vikings here is just regular, right? The Viking is the subject, so it's in the nominative case, but it's plural. You see, nominative plural. Okay? We have Alfred and kingdom. Alfred is the king in Old English, okay? Towards the end of Old English, who made a contract, made a pact with the Scandinavian people or the Vikings, remember? Establishing the separation of the Danelaw area and the English area. So Alfred's kingdom. So kingdom, what is kingdom? What is the case of kingdom? Attack is the verb. So attack the kingdom. So in this case, kingdom is the accusative case. And it's accusative singular too, right? And Alfred's is the possessive or genitive case. Okay, and then kingdom is accusative case. In the third one, I didn't underline, right? So I would underline immoderate labor and ill food. 12 of our crew were dead by immoderate labor and ill food. And I also underline of our crew. So can you tell me the cases that they are in? We have our crew. Our crew would be is after the word of. Remember? So it's partitive. It's part of the whole thing. 12 of the whole thing. So of our crew would be the genitive case, because it's after the word of. Okay? Just like the book of John, 12 of the whole thing, like that. Immoderate labor and ill food. So the labor and the food should be in what case? Should be in the dative case or the instrumental, same thing, right? Because it's after the preposition by, right? So dead by what? What is the instrument that caused that, right? Could you do number 4 to number 15? I'll give you about 5 to 6 minutes, okay? And if you have questions, I'll walk around and help you. And on the exam, I'll give you a table like this, and I'll underline some words, and you have to choose the correct one. So you can choose the correct one as long as you know what case it's in. So you choose like, oh, if it's accusative singular, you choose ege, like that. Okay, guys, so let's do this. If I have 2 sentences, my ships are lost and my eyes hurt, what cases are they in? My ship would be nominative, and so is my eyes, right? Nominative. And both of them are plural, like that, because they are more than one, and also they are the subject. Now, which one would you select from the chart here? Which word would you select to fill in the ship and the eyes here? You have the word ship in the table above, and you have the word eye in the table below. So they both are neuter nouns, right? Nouns with the neuter gender. So you have to select the right form and the right number, right? And the right case. So which one would you choose for ship? Ships here. Shippu, right? So you would use shippu like this with the U. You see that? Which is here. It's plural nominative because that's the nominative plural. And what about the word I? Which one would you choose? Nominative plural as well. So you would choose the word Egan, right? E-A-G-A-N. Egan. Now, this is how I would explain the difference between the weak and the strong. You see that they are both nominative plural and they are neuter nouns, right? They have the gender neuter. But one has the U ending, the other one has the AN ending. So they belong to different groups. And let's name one strong. Let's name the other group weak. That's how we know that they are weak or strong. But as non-native Old English speakers, I cannot tell. Eyes is in the weak noun group because I is weaker than a ship. I cannot say that. We only know it because we look at the endings and we just group the words with the same ending in the same group, like that. So number 4, let's look at number 4. Number 4, we have the Empire of Blefuscu is an island situated in the north and northeast side of Lilliput. In this case, it's a nominative, right? Nominative, because it's the subject. The empire is an island, like that. Nominative. Number 4 is nominative. Number 5, genitive, right? I had the permission of His Majesty, right? Of His Majesty or His Majesties. So it's genitive. Number 6, it arises chiefly from, so it's after the preposition, so it's a dative. Number 7, they preserve decency and civility in the highest degree. Preserve something, so it's accusative, right? ACC, accusative. Number 8, the maids of honor often invited this guy to their apartments. We have nominative because it's the subject, and nominative plural too, right? Maids with the S. Of honor, that thing would be genitive, okay? Whereas the maid is the nominative, okay? In Old English, there's no of, so there's no preposition of, so you would have to use the genitive ending to suggest that it's of, to suggest that it's the genitive case. Number 9, I found that their natural smell was much more supportable than when they use perfumes. In this case, it functions as the subject of the be verb, so it's the nominative case as well. Number 10, I stayed but 2 months. I stayed but 2 months, only 2 months with my wife and family. So it's a dative case, right? Because it's after a preposition with. Number 11, the first that came in my reach. This is a dative case again because it's after the preposition in, okay? Of the first would be the genitive because it's after of, okay? Number 12 is the same as 11. You have the genitive, you have the dative case after the word in. So dative case. Number 13, in the hogsheads of wine, you have the dative case again after in. Number 14, he told me would be in dative case, right? It's not accusative because you have to tell something to someone, right? So to someone is the dative case. Like teach something to someone, teach someone something. Number 15, dative case, right? Because it's after the preposition in, okay? So this is how nouns in Old English work. So that is to say they must be inflected, they must have endings for cases, genders, and also for numbers, okay? So I will, on the final, I will have this kind of thing and I will underline the word and I'll have you select the word from the table. So you don't need to memorize the endings, you don't need to memorize whether it's strong or weak, but you need to understand the functions of different noun phrases, okay? And on Monday, we'll come back and talk about verbs in Old English and in Middle English and in early modern English. And we'll talk about the changes that happened throughout the period. And on Wednesday, we'll do a review for the final. Okay? This is the last homework for you guys. You have it in that set of handout. This is just to have you practice doing the comparative method. And I give you the data. I give you cognates. Remember, cognates are words of the same origin with the same meaning. We have 3, 6, 7. We have 7 languages here. The first language in the first column is, of course, English. And you can recognize all the words here. And then you have language A, B, C, D, E, and F. And you have the corresponding cognates in these languages. So can you tell me, there are questions on that. Can you tell me which ones are languages that have a closer relationship to each other? So three of these, you have 6. 3 of these are languages that are in the West Germanic branch, and the other 3 are in the North Germanic branch. Remember, English is in the West Germanic branch, right? So English and other languages, other 3 languages here are in the West Germanic branch, and the other 3 are in the North Germanic branch. So which ones are in the North Germanic and which one are in the West Germanic? So the way to go about that is to compare, right? To compare the cognates, which ones look very similar to each other. So if you look at the first one, the word bone, right? Bone. You look across the board here. Which ones look alike? Well, unfortunately, in English it's O, right? And in other languages it's E, E. So no language here looks like English, so that's unfortunate. But we can look at other words. But at least in the first one, what you see is that A, right? Language A looks exactly the same as language C. Bean and bean. Anything else? No, right? But no, anything else meaning anything that looks like bean? No. But we have Ben in B, and what else? F. So that's a possibility of them being in the same group, being in the same sub-branch. And also we have Ben and Ben, D and E, right? But that's not all, because we need only 2 groups, okay? So we proceed to the second example and we do the same thing. So book, which one looks like English? At least B is different, right? B is different from English because it's Vogue with G as the voice G rather than K. So maybe B is not in the same group as English, so you just have to take a note of that. And then see what else might be interesting clue here. A and C look exactly alike as well. Book and book, see? This is the same as in the first word, bean and bean. So perhaps now you have the second clue that A and C are likely to be in the same group, to be in the same branch like that. But that doesn't tell you everything. So you have to look at other words too to help you come to the conclusion as to which 3 are in the West Germanic and which 3 are in the North Germanic branch. But you shouldn't think that words that are in the same family must look exactly alike. There must be some differences, that's why they are different languages. But generally speaking, they should be similar, right? Within the same language, they should be more similar to each other than they are to the other branch, and so on. Okay, and there are some questions on here that you should be able to do, like number 4. Given the word faster in language E, what is the English cognates? So you have to see what the sound P is in English, or PF in English. So you can use, for example, you see number 12, Paflame PF, right? So what should it be in English like that? See that? So in English, because you have one example here that starts with PF, paflame, whatever, however it's pronounced. And you have to do the correspondence with English. So what would it be in English like that? So you can do that question. Okay? So in example 12, this word in E has PF, but English has P, right? L is the same because that language has L. So PF is the same as P in English, like that. So if they have the word faster, then you should be able to tell. What that word should be in English. Okay. So this is not difficult. So Monday should be enough for you guys to work on and turn it in, and then I'll go over this homework as well on Monday. Okay. So we'll come back here on Monday and finish off the chapter, and on Wednesday we'll do a review for the final.